The legacy of the heart. It was a day like no other. The storm clouds hung heavy in the sky, darkening the edges of the horizon. The air was thick with an ominous chill as the small kingdom nestled between towering mountains braced itself for the approaching tempest. The city, once vibrant with life, now lay hushed, the streets eerily empty as the people gathered inside their homes, praying that the gods would spare them. Amidst the clouds, at the highest tower of the royal palace, the king stood at the window, gazing out over his land. His face, weathered by the years, held a solemn expression. The weight of his crown seemed heavier than it ever had before, and the decision he faced now felt more difficult than any battle he had fought in his youth. King Thorn had ruled for decades, his wisdom guiding the kingdom through countless wars, famines, and plagues. Yet, now, in the twilight of his reign, there was one challenge that even his experience could not prepare him for. The time had come to choose his successor. He had 3 sons, each of whom had grown into a man of their own. Each of them was capable in his own right, but none of them seemed fit to inherit the crown. The question that gnawed at the king's mind was simple: which of his sons would be the one to lead the kingdom into the future? He had decided to send them on a journey, a quest that would test their character and reveal their true nature. He told each of them to find the one thing that would demonstrate their worthiness to be king, something that would prove they were the most capable to rule the land. The first son, Prince Alaric, was the eldest and the most ambitious. He had always been the one to seek power, to prove his strength in battle and in politics. The second son, Prince Kalen, was the middle child, known for his intelligence and sharp mind. He was a scholar at heart, always seeking knowledge and wisdom. The youngest, Prince Ronan, was quiet and introspective, often lost in his thoughts. He was known for his compassion, his ability to see the world through the eyes of others, and his deep sense of morality. The king had given each of them a month to complete their journey, to bring back something that would prove they were the one destined to rule. He watched as they set out, each heading in a different direction, and he could not help but feel a sense of dread in his heart. He knew that this decision would change the course of the kingdom's future, but he could not shake the feeling that it would also change his own life in ways he could not yet comprehend. As the days turned to weeks, the king waited, and with each passing day, the storm clouds grew heavier. The winds howled, the sky darkened, and the rain began to fall in torrents. And yet, the princes did not return. As the days stretched into weeks, and then into months, King Thorn began to lose hope. Had they perished on their journey? Had they failed in their quests? Or worse, had they abandoned their responsibility altogether? It was on the 5th month, when the storm finally began to wane, that the first prince returned. Prince Alaric rode in on horseback, his face grim but determined. He dismounted in front of the king's palace and bowed low, his eyes full of pride. "Father, I have brought you what you requested," he said, holding up a chest made of solid gold, its surface etched with intricate designs. The king raised an eyebrow, intrigued but not entirely satisfied. "Gold?" he asked, his voice thick with skepticism. "You seek to impress me with riches, my son? Surely, you must know that wealth does not make a ruler." Prince Alaric's chest puffed out. "Gold can buy anything, father," he declared. "It can buy loyalty, power, and influence. With this, we will have everything we need to rule the kingdom." The king did not respond right away. He simply stared at the chest, his mind racing. In his younger years, he would have been impressed by such a display, but now, as he looked at his son, he saw only ambition, ambition without understanding. He could not help but feel that Alaric's focus on wealth was misplaced. "Thank you, my son," the king said, his voice steady. "But I will need more than gold to decide who will lead this kingdom." Prince Alaric's face tightened, but he bowed once more before leaving. The king felt a pang of disappointment as he watched his eldest son retreat into the shadows. As the days passed, the second prince, Kalen, returned. He arrived on horseback as well, but his demeanor was different, calm and thoughtful. He carried with him a chest filled with precious stones, each one glittering like stars in the night sky. "Father," he said as he knelt before the king, "I have brought you the finest gems in the land." The king looked down at the sparkling stones, his heart heavy with weariness. "Precious stones," he murmured. "You believe that beauty and rarity can make one worthy of the crown?" Prince Kalen nodded, his eyes alight with passion. "These gems are symbols of wisdom, Father. They represent the knowledge I have gathered from the greatest minds in the kingdom. With them, we can build a legacy that will endure for centuries." The king was silent for a long moment. He looked at his son, his second son, who had always been the one to study, to seek knowledge. The stones in Kalen's chest shimmered in the light, but they seemed to pale in comparison to the weight of the king's thoughts. "I thank you, Kalen," the king said at last. "But knowledge alone cannot rule a kingdom. Wisdom is more than what can be learned from books or gems." Prince Kalen's face fell, but he too bowed and left. The king's heart sank with the departure of his second son. He could feel the storm inside him growing. He had yet to see what his third son would bring. Days turned into weeks, and the storm that had been gathering for so long finally broke. But with it came a sense of dread that lingered in the air. The wind howled outside, and the castle seemed to tremble under the force of the tempest. The king stood at the window once more, watching as the storm raged outside, his mind filled with uncertainty. His heart ached for his sons, for the choices he had yet to make. It was then that he saw him, Prince Ronan, the youngest of his sons, walking toward the palace. Ronan was alone, his cloak drenched by the rain, his face pale but calm. He did not carry any treasure, no chest filled with gold or gems, no display of wealth or knowledge. He simply walked forward, his footsteps steady and sure, his eyes focused on something far beyond the walls of the palace. When he arrived at the king's chambers, he bowed deeply, his voice soft yet resolute. "Father," he said, "I have brought you what you asked for." The king raised an eyebrow, surprised. "And what is it that you have brought, my son?" Ronan stepped forward, holding out a small book, its pages worn with age. "This is the story of a simple man," he said. "A man who, despite his humble beginnings, found wisdom through the trials of life. Through love, loss, and sacrifice, he learned that true power comes not from gold, nor from knowledge, but from the heart." The king took the book into his hands, feeling its weight. He opened it and began to read. As he read, the words seemed to come alive before him, filling his mind with images of a life lived with kindness, humility, and understanding. The story of the simple man unfolded before him, and with each turn of the page, the king felt a deeper connection to the lessons within. He felt the weight of his own years, the mistakes he had made, and the wisdom he had gained through experience. When he finished the story, he looked up at his son, his heart swelling with pride. "Ronan," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you have brought me something greater than gold or gems. You have brought me a lesson in wisdom, one that I had forgotten in my own pursuit of power." The storm outside had finally calmed, and the king could see the sun beginning to break through the clouds. The darkness was lifting, and with it came a sense of clarity. He knew, in that moment, who the true ruler of the kingdom was meant to be. It was not the one who sought power, nor the one who sought knowledge. It was the one who understood the power of love, compassion, and wisdom. It was Ronan, the son who had brought him a simple story, a story that reminded him of what truly mattered. As the king stood in silence, the storm had finally passed. The kingdom was safe, and the sun had risen once more. The king looked at his youngest son, and for the first time in many years, he felt peace in his heart. "Ronan," he said, his voice soft but filled with conviction, "you are the one who will rule this kingdom. Your heart, your wisdom, and your understanding will guide us into a future where love and compassion will always be our greatest treasure." And with those words, the storm had truly ended. The legacy of the heart had been passed down, and the kingdom would never be the same again. As the years passed, Prince Ronan ruled wisely, his reign marked by peace and prosperity. And the people of the kingdom, who had once feared the storms of war and chaos, now found hope in the calm that followed. The kingdom flourished, and the simple story of a man who had learned wisdom through love and loss became a tale passed down through generations, a reminder of the true strength that lies within the heart. The king, before his death, smiled with contentment, knowing that he had made the right choice. And in his final moments, he thought of the story Ronan had brought him, the story of a simple man, and he understood, at last, that true greatness is not found in power, wealth, or knowledge, but in the wisdom of the heart.
Whispering echoes.